Hey there, everyone. Welcome back to Utility Sports. In this video, we're going to be talking about NFL Week 16 predictions and pick'em. And this is one of the most exciting weeks of the NFL season. The playoffs are right around the corner, and there's a big head-to-head matchup between my favorite team, the New York Jets, and Austin's favorite team, the Jacksonville Jaguars. One of those teams is trending in the wrong direction and starting Zach Wilson at quarterback. And the other one seems to just keep on winning. And, that's those Jaguars who I like to pick each and every week. So, Austin, let's look at the records here right now. Going into week 16, well, guys, I've got a lot of ground to make up. I'm down by 11 games here, and it's not been pretty from my side of things. I'd like to blame the Las Vegas Raiders for this. About halfway through the season, I said I'm done picking them, and I, in that video, said they're going to go on a win streak now. Well, thank you, Jacoby Myers. That win streak continues, and they just keep on winning games pretty much ever since I stopped picking them. So the Raiders here, I think, are the big difference, the 11-game slate. I'm going to blame them, even though it's just clearly I'm bad at this. That's going to be my excuse moving forward, Austin. But I feel very confident that I have the most important game of the year on you right now. Let's get into it, Austin. The very first game this week, Thursday night, prime time, exactly what every NFL fan wants to see. Jacksonville, New York, the game between two of the worst franchises in the NFL. But hey, they're both relevant right now. The 6-8 Jaguars, the 7-7 Jets. Austin's going to act like there's a big difference between those two records. There won't be at the end of this week. Both teams are going to be 7-8. Jaguars beat the Jets down badly. And I just want to point out that in Trevor Lawrence's last 5 games, he has as many touchdowns as I think Zach Wilson does in his career. Austin, one number really important to me, actually two I want to mention, number 1 and number 2. If anyone was watching our videos a year and a half, 2 years ago, you would know that number 1 on Austin's draft board was Trevor Lawrence. Interesting that it wasn't Zach Wilson who went second overall in that draft to my Jets. Austin, what do you have to say for yourself?
I think it's going to be a slightly contested game initially, but the Jets will, eventually pull ahead and never look back. I look at this defense as impenetrable, and I say that lightly because you look at the New York Jets and what they have to offer here. Their corner play has been outstanding all season long. Their pass rush has been good linebacker play altogether. That is a formula for disaster for Jacksonville, who went up against Dallas, who is a very, very talented defense on all 3 levels. However, they were able to narrowly get the victory, but I don't think they will have the same luck against the Jets. The Jets are at home, and Jacksonville definitely struggles on the road. So I think once again, a lot of things are stacking against them. It doesn't really matter who starts at quarterback for the New York Jets, in my opinion. Their defense is so good. They're going to be playing complementary football and hopefully won't be turning over the football. Jacksonville, you can't say the same thing here. Trevor Lawrence had 2 turnovers in this game, and they were able to get away with it. But I think the Jets, this is their game to lose, in my opinion.
You said some really important things in there that I want to circle back on and retouch on. You said the word impenetrable, and I thought for a second you were going to start talking about the Jaguars' offensive line because it seems like nobody can get through that unit. They've been so good this year. And yes, Quinnen Williams is having a career year for himself. Cool. Won't matter on Thursday because the Jaguars are going to slow him down. And then I think another thing you said that was really important is it doesn't matter who's starting at quarterback for the Jets. I completely agree. All 3 of the options are bad. Robert Saleh famously said, hey, we have 3 starting quarterbacks. No, you don't. Maybe in the CFL you do. Joe Flacco, Mike White, Zach Wilson are not starting caliber quarterbacks. I think it's pretty clear. The Jets started the year so well, but how many starting quarterbacks have they beat, Austin? I know everyone's going to say, whoa, Josh Allen, Josh Allen. Okay, then the second time Josh Allen played like Josh Allen and the Jets did not win that one. So, and I myself am a Jets fan. So right now Jets fans are probably pissed at us. Yeah, cry about it, okay? I already do. We're bad. We're not that good. We're the worst 7-win team in the league, and that includes the Tennessee Titans, who are going to get passed up this week by the Jacksonville Jaguars as well. The Jaguars are rolling right now. I think they're legit. Austin, you know it. I've been riding with this team all year long, and they're 1 game out of the AFC South right now. I'm telling you, everyone should be scared. No one wants to play the Jaguars come playoff time. Let's get into our next game now. We look at NFL Saturday, which obviously is a fun time of the year. And we have the Atlanta Falcons heading into Baltimore to take on the Ravens. This game was actually a little bit tougher of a decision for me than I think a lot of people would expect. I did opt for the Ravens. They're just the better team on paper, but they haven't played super great this year. Of course, their most recent game against the Browns, They only put up 3 points. I think one silver lining for them, though, J.K. Dobbins has looked really, really good the last 2 games for them. I think he's someone to really rely on and tote the rock here against this Falcons team. Austin, what do you like about Baltimore in this one?
I think, both teams are fighting for their playoff lives. And you look at the Atlanta Falcons still hanging in there in the NFC South just because of the struggles Tampa Bay's had. Baltimore is trying to hang in there, obviously, with Cincinnati. So it's a tightly contested matchup in this one. The quarterback play is going to be interesting, to say the very least. But at the end of the day, it's going to be a ground-dominated football game. Both teams will be pounding the rock consistently. You'll see Algier versus Dobbins, and really those are the two different difference makers in this game. But going for the team that, is just better on paper and, to me, slightly out edges them in terms of overall talent. And that's why I picked Baltimore.
Right, at home too. It's a pretty safe bet here to pick Baltimore. We have a bird rivalry here, Austin. It's a bird theme at all times here on the channel. So Ravens are going to pull it out here against the Falcons. Let's get into our next game now. We look at the Detroit Lions here, and we got a little bit of a cat theme in this one. Lions at Panthers, and the Lions are rolling kind of suspiciously. They're 6-1 in their last 7 games. Kind of a crazy turnaround after starting 1-6 and trading one of your best playmakers in TJ Hawkinson. They've figured some things out, though, clearly. They're winning games. They just had a narrow win over those Jets, like I talked about. Both teams are at 7-7 now, respectively, the Lions and Jets. And the Lions, that was a big win for them. It keeps them in the playoff picture. And I think they could continue to push forward if they continue to win like they have been. Austin, why do you really like them over Carolina, who has played pretty well under Steve Wilks, honestly?
Yeah, they're playing, good football under Steve Wilks, but at the end of the day, I just don't trust the quarterback position for Carolina. I really don't. I don't know what I'm going to get out of them on a week-to-week basis. Detroit looks better on paper. They're playing very, very tough football, especially, these last couple of games. I mean, they're showing a lot of heart, and they're starting to figure it out defensively. Aaron Glenn has made some adjustments for this team, so therefore it's starting to translate a little bit on the field here. Definitely a little bit of a schematic changeup in terms of their actual defensive philosophy. But I think the Detroit Lions offensively are just going to be way too much for this Carolina Panther defense to handle.
Yeah, definitely. Jared Goff, I think, has had a really nice season himself. You look at the actual numbers, 23 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. He's one of those quarterbacks you put in the list as better than Zach Wilson. There's a lot of those guys that you can put in that list. Jared Goff's definitely one of them. He's been playing good football this year. Again, 23 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, 97.2 passer rating. He's been good, and I just don't think the Panthers can match that, like you talked about with your synopsis on this game as well. Let's get into the next one now. We look at a matchup here between Buffalo and Chicago, and I think Chicago, Bears fans, they should be really happy with what they've seen from Justin Fields. He becomes the 3rd quarterback in NFL history to run for 1,000 yards in a single season, and has been very, very good as of late. Especially, fantasy owners are going to really love his production. But I think that he's really shown some of those glimpses of what you want to see in a second-year quarterback. But it's a tough task here to beat Buffalo, one of the best teams in the entire NFL, against one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, and Josh Allen. Austin, the Bills are just way too safe of a choice in this matchup, right?
Defensively, they are so sound, and you look at every level of that defense. There's a playmaker or two. There's so many good players. They're very, very well disciplined and don't make a ton of mistakes. And when you're playing against Justin Fields, you have to make sure that your eyes are on him, and that's exactly what Buffalo is going to do under Leslie Frazier. This Bills defense is tough. Now, another element of it is Chicago's defense is a little bit depleted. Obviously, they've made some midseason trades to deplete that for draft capital, but a guy like Roquan Smith would have definitely helped in this one. However, I don't see that being the case here. Buffalo with Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, it's too much for this Bears defense to handle, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it's an uphill battle for them. Austin, you mentioned Leslie Frazier, who's done a great job, not only this year, but the last few years for Buffalo, really building good competitive championship level defenses. Honestly, someone who was a head coach in the past for the Minnesota Vikings. Is it possible this offseason we see him get another chance?
I think there's definitely an opportunity. Guys like Steve Wilks and Leslie Frazier could see those second chances come this offseason. Definitely some poor head coaches and coaching around the league. There's going to be some opportunities. I think either one of them very well could get another shot.
Definitely something to keep your eyes on. Bills fans are probably begging for that not to be the outcome. I'm sure they love having Leslie Frazier there as their D coordinator. Let's get into the next game now. We look at a matchup between New Orleans and Cleveland, and the Browns. they haven't really moved the football with ease like a lot of people would hope to see from Deshaun Watson's first couple weeks as starter, but they've been winning games. They've been playing well, in their defense specifically. He's done a really great job, which is what's going to bottle up New Orleans here. I know Saints fans are at their wits' end with Andy Dalton, and I think they're just tired of everything kind of going on in New Orleans right now. Alvin Kamara has been an awesome player when he's been on the field this year. Still, there's no doubt about that, but he's been a little limited. And the Saints offense just in general has been limited. I think Chris Olave, one of the few bright spots here, makes it pretty easy to pick the Browns for me at home in this one. Austin, what do you like about Cleveland here in this matchup?
Yeah, I think as Deshaun Watson gets a little more comfortable in this offense, you're going to see it open up. You know, the play calling's been a little bit limited just considering the amount of time he spent away from the game. It's going to take some time for him to kind of warm up, get back to, game time actual feel. So once this continues to progress, he gets, more comfortable with this team. You're going to see the playbook open up a little bit more. They're going to be taking more shots. And, when you are playing Cleveland, you have to respect the run. They have two very, very good running backs. And I think at the end of the day, New Orleans offense is a little gimmicky to me. They don't have that, consistent guy that's going to be a chain mover. Olave has been very good this season, but outside of that, there's not a whole lot going on for this offense, especially with Andy Dalton at quarterback. There's a lot of question marks I have about, where they're at without Sean Payton. I'm not a huge believer in the Saints at this point.
Right. And looking at their long-term cap space, it's going to be hard to continue to get this team better and moving in the right direction without some nifty maneuvering. Cleveland here just feels like the right pick for me. Let's get into the next game. Now we look at a matchup here between the Kansas City Chiefs, who are going to be hosting the Seattle Seahawks. And, the Seahawks have been really feisty, really competitive this year. Tariq Woolen, one of the best young defensive players in the league right now. But Kansas City, we've seen the tried and true formula of Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce just consistently get the job done. Kelce's been a league winner in fantasy this year. He's been a game winner for the Chiefs, and he's been someone who I think probably one of the most important offensive weapons in the entire league, even if you include the quarterback position. Austin, how important is Travis Kelce to this offense, and what kind of role will he play this weekend?
The one thing that's really big about him is his constant availability and just the actual talent on the field that he brings opens it up in the middle. There's so much that you can do with him. He's a tough guy to stop because you can't put a corner on him, you can't put a linebacker on him, and no safety is going to match up with them. So that is a combination for disaster. If you can't have a single position cover him, it's going to make for a very, very long day. Therefore, opening up some other opportunities for the other playmakers on this team. And Jerick McKinnon has stepped up in a big way. Pacheco's done some nice things as well. So this offense is starting to get into the correct rhythm that they've been seeking out all season long. Kelce and Mahomes, that has been a dynamic duo all season long, as it's been their entire careers. But once again, it's going to be way too much for the Seahawks to handle. I mean, no team's been able to even really, slow it down at this point. It's tough to hold on to this team and, really compress them. But Houston provided a little bit of a formula this week. Granted that they lost, but they hung in there with the Chiefs as long as they could.
Yeah, they definitely did. Austin, I want to ask you here. You mentioned Jerick McKinnon. He's been RB1 the last couple of weeks in standard PPR fantasy leagues at about 30 plus points a game. Austin, if his his over under was set at 18.5, would you hit the over on it just with how he's been playing lately?
Yeah, I mean, you would almost have to, based on the role expansion that he's seen in this offense. Yeah, I mean, you definitely have to expect that. So with him, it's kind of crazy. His career path and his trajectory has gone up and down so much, but now he's found a really good role carved out for himself in KC.
Yeah, it's worked out really well for both sides. Let's get into our next game now, as we look at the New York Giants and the Minnesota Vikings. And wow, what a world of emotions this past weekend for the Minnesota Vikings. At halftime, everyone's tweeting, yeah, the Vikings are who we thought they are. Well, wake up, because they came back in that game, the biggest comeback in NFL history, and it was one for the ages. Kirk Cousins has been absolutely dynamite this season. He has 7 game-winning drives out of their 14 games so far. Yes, I know that their point differential is not great, but there's something to be said about winning a bunch of close games. It really does prime you for the postseason, where there's not going to be blowouts week in, week out. You have to be able to execute down the stretch of games. And that's something, Austin, you and I both know Minnesota has not been able to do that historically in the past. The moment gets too big for them and they crumble. It looks like things are completely different here under KOC in Minnesota, which is why I think both of us feel comfortable going with them here against the Giants in what's a really actually important NFC game here for playoff implications. Why do you like the Vikings in this one?
Yeah, I mean, I just like the playmakers that the Vikings have, but once again, the Giants are going to be having more to play for at this point. They need to win some games down the stretch. They're going to be playing as tough as they can. The Vikings already have clinched the division, and we know that the number one seed is basically out of reach, with the Philadelphia Eagles. So that's where I was leaning back towards the Giants. However, I just think the Vikings are going to play hard in this one. Justin Jefferson's a tough cover all day long, but at the end of the day, the Giants are so banged up, especially in that receiver room. I just don't know what to really expect from them. They're going to have to lean on Saquon Barkley heavily, but the Vikings can go ahead and stack the box a little bit and make Daniel Jones make some plays.
Yeah, and that's what the Giants are going to have to see happen. They're going to have Daniel Jones make some of those plays. The Vikings, like you said, probably not going to be able to get to that one seed and get that first round bye in the playoffs. Right now, they're about 2 games back of Philadelphia there, and of course, lost that head-to-head matchup as well. Think back to week 2, how crazy that game is in terms of impacting future playoff implications if Minnesota didn't lay an egg in that one. Let's get out to the next game now, and it's actually going to be the Cincinnati Bengals heading into New England, who Patriots fans right now, if you're watching this, I'm sorry. Jacoby Myers, what a weird end to that game. A lateral that I don't even know if he saw who he was throwing the ball to. I know on broadcast it was impossible to see who he was throwing it to. And Chandler Jones said thank you very much, sent Mac Jones onto his butt and took it to the house in Vegas. So definitely a crazy way to end. And I think it's a good time for Belichick to say, okay, we're on to Cincinnati, but here at home, Cincinnati's actually coming to them. Austin, why do you like the Bengals here in a really tough place to play there in New England?
I mean, Cincinnati was, doing some nice things offensively against Tampa Bay. Once again, that Tampa Bay is not the same defense we've seen, but they're not a bad unit. So they were moving the ball up and down the field. Joe Burrow had a couple of miscues, but for the most part, he was pretty locked in. This Bengals team has once again found a nice rhythm at the latter part of the season. This is exactly what happened last year. They had a few hiccups at the start of last year, and now it was almost the same, script that was written for them. This team's dangerous. Once again, Joe Mixon playing well, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd. That three-headed monster at receiver is so much that you have to stop. And if there's a team that can, try to scheme out a guy like Jamar Chase, that's going to be New England. If they take that away, the problem is you still have to leave a lot of one-on-one coverage with T. Higgins. And that's, not something you really want to be doing as well. So New England has a tough task against Cincinnati. However, they're a team that, it's always, no matter who's at quarterback, I'm still worried about having to go into Foxborough and getting a win.
The Bengals are such a good team. And honestly, for a lot of people, they were starting to sell their stock by week 3, week 4 this season. If you guys were to rewind, go back to our NFL week 3 pick'em and predictions, you would hear us saying, hey, don't hit the panic button on Cincinnati. This is exactly why. This team is too good, too talented, too many skill players. Joe Burrow is too good of a quarterback to really have a down year like it almost seemed like they were going to have. And Austin, I'm glad you and I both did not sell our stock on this team. Let's get into our next one now. We look at a matchup here between the Houston Texans and the Tennessee Titans. And Austin, here's my Jaguars propaganda. The Texans go into Tennessee, play upset. Right now, we don't know the status on Ryan Tannehill at the time of recording. He did get carted off in their most recent game. And I'm saying Malik Willis, if he's starting, he struggles a little bit here, and Houston gets the job done and opens the door for Jacksonville to represent the AFC South in the NFL playoffs. Let's get it, baby.
Yeah. I don't know what you're on, but yeah, I mean, if you want to ride high with the Texans, who played well against KC, I guess I can't fault that, because this defense definitely have some playmakers on it. But Tennessee, there is some reason for concern. Tannehill was able to come back and finish out that game, but at the very end, once again, he was off limping. So I don't know what his status is, but when the season's on the line, he's very likely going to play. He's going to be very banged up probably heading into this one. Just overall tough break for the Titans. However, they're going to lean on Derrick Henry. I don't know if the Texans are going to be able to stop him, because Derrick Henry, basically whoever he's playing against, it's a long afternoon. And especially against a divisional opponent, he's going to wear them down. And I think the Titans are going to be able to stop their losing streak here, which I believe is currently at 4, and go ahead and take care of business at home versus Texans.
Texans, let's make it 5, baby. Let's roll. Let's get into our next game now. We look at a Matchup here between the Washington Commanders and the San Francisco 49ers. And the man of the hour has been Brock Purdy, Austin. He's been playing really, really good football, going from Mr. Irrelevant to Mr. Relevant for this 49ers offense. How impressed have you been with him? Obviously, you had a close eye on him back in his college days as a Cyclone. What do you think about him now with how he's performing?
Yeah, and this doesn't shock me entirely. I mean, I would be crazy to say that I thought this was going to happen, but I figured Brock Purdy was a guy that could step in and put a Band-Aid on it. However, he's done much more than that. I mean, he's definitely taken his game to new heights to where I didn't even think he could touch. So a lot of credit to him and the coaching staff of the 49ers, more specifically Kyle Shanahan, a guy that does a great job with whatever quarterbacks in the system, making it work. A lot of their offense is predicated on the run. However, he's having to make some throws. Now, there are some bad misses that you'll see with Brock Purdy, but once again, for the most part, he takes care of the football and sometimes will take the shot. So overall, it's not an over daunting task for him to play quarterback there because there are some playmakers, but with Deebo Samuel down, that definitely changes the complexion of this offense.
And for me, that's why I'm going with the Commanders here. I'm looking at this as maybe more of a down-to-earth game for Brock Purdy, who, like you said, Austin, he's been playing really well. And I think exceeding expectations, not only of ourselves, what we thought he could do, but probably realistically of that coaching staff as well. I think he's played really well, but Washington's not an easy team to roll over. This team, without Carson Wentz, they've still been playing good football. Taylor Heineke's been doing an adequate job. And when you look at it, he's not going to win you games, but he's also not going to lose you games. I think Heineke is going to keep them in this one, and it's going to come down to the end of the game. And if they get the football, they can probably make a play or two at the end to set themselves up for a very narrow win here, even on the road. Tough place to play. But I think the Commanders here are a team you don't want to rule out in this one. Let's go ahead and move forward now to the game of the week, arguably here, the Philadelphia Eagles, the Dallas Cowboys. I think the only one more important to us here on the channel is the Jets-Jaguars matchup, of course. So, Austin, Eagles at Cowboys. This is one of those important games where we just saw the Jaguars beat the Cowboys in overtime. Rayshawn Jenkins played hero in that one. And people are starting to say, oh, same old Cowboys. End of season collapse. Do you see that coming for them? And is that part of why you're going with the Eagles here, or just the Eagles a better team?
I've had a ton of confidence in the Philadelphia Eagles throughout the entire year, and that has paid off, as have you. So this is not a slight on the Cowboys. It's just the Eagles are such a complete team. When you look at the passing game, the running game, their defensive line's been very, very good. Secondary's been terrific. All of the stars are kind of aligning for the Eagles to make a deep postseason run, and I think it's going to show here against the Dallas Cowboys, going on the road against one of the NFC's top teams. To me, Philadelphia's got the tools to win it all. And I think they have to show once again against Dallas that they are that team. So, it's going to be a tight matchup. I think it's going to be a one-score game, but ultimately I feel the Eagles are going to come out on top in this one.
The Eagles are so prolific offensively. I love everything that this team has. Honestly, the roster construction, Howie Roseman, I think, has done such a good job with this team. And it's, I think, a really great example of how quickly NFL franchises change over time. You think back to when they won a Super Bowl, you had Nick Foles there, you had completely different playmakers, and it was the whole underdog story. Now at this point, after a couple down years, a couple top higher picks like Devontae Smith, they come back, completely new quarterback in the building, Jalen Hurts. They've got brand new pieces. Of course, they make the big trade for AJ Brown. That's kind of sprung all of this. The Eagles have been so good, and I think that, again, like you said, this isn't a shot at Dallas. Dallas is a pretty good team. Philadelphia is just a better one. Let's get into the next one now. We look at a matchup here that is between those Las Vegas Raiders, who they've been rolling, and the Pittsburgh Steelers. In Austin, I'm breaking my own rule. I'm breaking it. I'm going with the Raiders. I have jinxed myself into oblivion this year. So there's no way, and now I'm jinxing it again. There's no way the Raiders lose to the Steelers this week. Austin, why are you in agreement with that?
And another team that's been tough to peg this year is when the Steelers are winning games they shouldn't, and the games that they should win, they lose. So I don't even know what to make of these two teams. Very difficult to pick all season long. And the only reason I went with the Raiders is, once again, they're fighting for postseason positioning, giving themselves a chance in the dance. And at the end of the day, I think coming off of that miracle win against the Patriots, that's definitely going to spring a little bit of spark in this team. At the end of the day, having Darren Waller was a big factor once again. His sheer presence opens up a lot of things for Devontae Adams and Mac Hollins. So once again, I guess we're back with the Raiders here, hoping they recapture what they should have been all along. But at the end of the day, there are clear and obvious issues that this team has.
Yeah, I think if they stay healthy, they're at least better than what we've seen on the field this year. I think you nailed it with the Waller assertion there that his presence alone it makes a big difference. Obviously, scored a touchdown today as well. The day we're recording this, so the Raiders, I think that they're moving in the right direction. Obviously, probably a little too late for them, but they're trying to build some of this forward, and some of these players here there are also trying to save their jobs at this point. Let's get into our next game now. We look at a matchup here that's going to come on Sunday. Of course, the Sunday slate. And we got the Green Bay Packers heading into Miami to take on the Dolphins. And, well, kind of a tale of two different stories here. Green Bay's been a little disappointing this year. And I think Miami, for the most part, has lived up to every expectation that you and I both had, and even maybe a little bit more so. Obviously, a tough loss to Buffalo this past week. But we're looking at this as a good bounce back game for them back at home against a team that just hasn't been playing super great this year. You can't sleep on the Packers. They still have Aaron Rodgers. They got Christian Watson. There's obviously talent here in Green Bay. Obviously, there's some health concerns too, but for Miami, it's pretty safe to take them. And I think Tyreek Hill has a big bounce back week.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Tyreek Hill a little banged up himself, but at the end of the day, they have to go into Miami and play this tough Dolphins team, which is loaded with playmakers at the receiver position. Can Green Bay keep up? I think it's very possible that the Packers go on a run here, and if they win this game, watch out for them potentially in that wild card spot. A couple of games down the stretch that are very winnable. So this very well could be a big spark for them moving forward. But the Miami Dolphins are a team that I have a lot of confidence in. And I think with what they've been able to do so far this year, they lost that close one against Buffalo. But at the end of the day, I think the Dolphins can get the job done at home.
A warning here. Here comes one of those TV analyst cliches. I don't think the Packers are a team that a lot of people would want to play in the wild card round, just given the fact that, hey, they have Aaron Rodgers. They've got some really good talent still on that team. They're a team that a lot of people expected to win the NFC North this year. But like you said, it's an uphill battle for them, and they got to get it started here against Miami, and that's a tough task. Let's get into the next one now. We look at a matchup here between those Denver Broncos who, hey, they've struggled, but, they've put some things together as of late, and they go into Los Angeles to take on the Rams, who, quite frankly, just have not been good this year. So, Austin, what do you like about the Broncos here in this one taking on Los Angeles?
Yeah, I think this is probably one of those that we both didn't like to pick. I mean, I know myself when I saw this, I'm like, this is disgusting. However, the Broncos defense has been terrific all season long, and we've seen it last game as well against the Cardinals. I understand the idea that they were going against, Trace McSorley and Colt McCoy, but Denver just looked really good in that one, having a star-studded corner and Patrick Surtain. I think that this defense is going to throw a couple different looks at, Baker Mayfield that he might have not seen. So at the end of the day, I know they're on the road, but I just have a lot of trust in this defense. Most times we talk about the offensive play here, but at the end of the day, I think it's which defense is better and who's got more playmakers, and that's Denver.
Right. Tariq Woolen and Sauce Gardner have gotten a lot of love this year as rookie cornerbacks, and deservedly so. They both played really, really well. I think PS2 doesn't get enough love right now around, media and just the league in general. He's been one of the best young cornerbacks in the NFL, and you could even maybe remove the word young from that. He's just been a stud. So, the Broncos have a really big time game changer out at the cornerback position, one of the most premier positions in the NFL, a position you need to have good playmakers at, and they have one in him. So it's definitely been impressive for the Broncos defensively, and I think they roll in this one for sure. Let's get into our next one now. We look at a matchup here between the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Arizona Cardinals on Sunday night prime time. Probably not what the NFL schedule makers had in mind at this point of the year. The Buccaneers just have not looked like themselves, and the Arizona Cardinals are going to be without Kyler Murray after his ACL injury. So for me, it makes it really easy to pick the Bucs, especially now Colt McCoy with the concussion had to come out of this past game. You would think that the Buccaneers can't lose this game. Now, they haven't been super inspiring in terms of the way they played, but it's going to be a tough game to lose here, just given Arizona's quarterback situation, right, Austin?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Arizona has a lot of things working against it outside of the fact they have DeAndre Hopkins to make some plays on the outside that could be game breaking in a game that's very, very close potentially. He could be one of those difference makers. Now that's a long shot, and that's why we both ended up going with the Bucs. Tom Brady's got to find a way. He's got to find a way to get in this postseason as the division leader still. very, very narrow margin for error there. I just, there's not a lot that, Tampa Bay's done right this year. But once again, a couple games down the stretch, I have a lot of belief in Tom Brady.
Yeah, I don't want to sell my stock in Tom either. Future New York Jets starting quarterback for anyone who's been following along on the channel here. I've been trying to speak that into existence. The Bucs haven't been great, and I think, had this game played out differently for Arizona in terms of health, they'd have a way better shot here. So unless DeAndre Hopkins goes back to prime Texans mode where he was playing with Brian Hoyer and Brock Osweiler and just, absolutely takes over the game, it's going to be an uphill battle for them for sure, which brings us into Monday night prime time. And it's a matchup here between the Los Angeles Chargers and the Indianapolis Colts. And I'm going to make the most unpopular pick in the entire video. And I'm taking the Colts here. A lot of people are going to, meme them for their loss to the Minnesota Vikings, deservedly so. Blowing a 33-point lead is not very good. So they should be extremely motivated to come back and get a win. They have an extra day of preparation in this one since it's Monday night. Their most recent game was a Saturday. So they've got an extended week here. They're going to have to sit on their laurels a little bit and, kind of stomach that loss to Minnesota. And I think it's going to inspire some good football from this team. And at the end of the day, there is still some talent here in Indianapolis. I think Stephon Gilmore, who kind of got wrecked by Justin Jefferson, who, by the way, who isn't getting wrecked by Justin Jefferson this year. I think he has a better performance in this one. And I think the Colts come back, win a narrow one here. And then Jeff Saturday can say that he owns the AFC West at least because he beat the Raiders. And I think he's going to beat the Chargers this week.
Yeah, I mean, definitely a bold prediction here going with the Colts. The reason I go with the Chargers in this one is the social media quarterback, Justin Herbert, man. I mean, this guy can make a lot of big time throws, and I think he's going to will his team to a victory here. Indianapolis Colts are definitely going to be very, very motivated, but I don't know if there's a greater motivation than trying to reach that postseason and for Brandon Staley to not lose his job. So that's the reason I'm going with the Chargers here, trying to, get a playoff spot, trying to get the dance, fighting for a wild card position. The Chargers got to get the job done here, and, it would look very, very grim if they lost to the Colts. Despite them being on the road, I think this is a must win.
If you guys rewind to the start of the video, you'll notice I'm down 11 games. This is a screenshot worthy moment here. Picks like this is what put me down by 11, and I just blame it all on the Las Vegas Raiders. So, we're going to ride here with the Colts. It's a bad pick. If you're betting money, don't do what I'm doing here. But at the end of the day, I'm riding with those Colts. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully you really did enjoy today's video. I felt like this one was a lot of fun to record, a lot of interesting games. Let us know who's winning that Thursday night matchup between those Jets and Jaguars. We all know the Jaguars are going to pull it out, right? Thanks again so much for watching, and we'll catch you in the very next Utility Sports video.